My brothers and sisters, we today stand before the cross, looking up at our crucified Lord. And it is a confronting place to be. Each Good Friday, we find ourselves drawn to this solemn commemoration of the passion and death of Jesus. And we are aware that this was the way in which the Son of God has redeemed humanity, opening up for each of us the way to salvation. In looking upon the cross, we are looking into the face of human suffering. In the agonising death that he underwent, we are aware of the suffering and agonising death of so many in our world today. We are plunged into the profound mystery of human suffering. There are no words in the face of deep suffering. Suffering is shrouded in mystery. And when we find ourselves at the edge of the mystery, all we can do is fall silent. At the crucifixion stood Mary, his mother, and the disciple John, wrapped in silent grief. And the words of the Stabat Mater come to mind. At the cross, her station keeping, stood the mournful mother weeping, close to her son to the last. And even when he turns his attention to his mother and entrusts her to the disciple John, and so to all of us, to the church, there is no exchange of words between them. Mary is silent. There is a silent gaze of two people fully immersed in agony and mystery. Suffering is born in silence. Yet there is meaning to be found. Jesus reveals to us that the way of redemption for humanity would be through suffering, his own. The powerful words of the prophet Isaiah, which we read this afternoon, so eloquently express this reality. And the prophet says, "Yet ours were the sufferings he bore, ours the sorrows he carried. But we thought of him as someone punished, struck by God and brought low. Yet he was pierced through for our faults, crushed for our sins. On him lies a punishment that brings us peace. And through his wounds, we are healed." On the cross, Jesus assumed all the suffering of humanity. Our individual sufferings too were taken up on the cross. And in the words of the prophet, through his wounds we are healed. The experience of suffering, in whatever form it may take, does bring a very particular perspective to human life. Times of happiness and well-being, for which we all long, are blessings. But they can blind us to the deeper realities of life. We can, in times of good times, find ourselves becoming more self-interested and seeking pleasure and enjoyment for its own sake. We can even believe that we are somehow invincible. But suffering, accepted in the right spirit, humbles us reveals the true fragility of human life. And we certainly learn that we cannot control our destiny, and we cannot determine our state of being. We are led to deeper truths about ourselves and the meaning of human life. It opens up the possibility to pursue things of the Spirit, not just those of the earth. And enduring suffering can also breed in us a deeper compassion towards others. We become more sensitive to the struggles of others around us. And we find within ourselves a greater desire to help and support others in their own need, because our hearts have become softened and we grow in understanding of what others may have to deal with in their lives. In other words, the experience of suffering draws us into a path of personal redemption. Accepted in a humble and trusting spirit, suffering helps us to surrender our lives into the hands of God. Our inner spirit is being reshaped and moulded into something far more beautiful, radiant even. There is one more aspect of suffering that needs to be considered. As we all know, sufferings come to us, and they are not of our choosing. Tragedy strikes, and we have to accept something that we never wish had occurred, but it has. However, we can also choose paths that involve suffering. Jesus himself had the choice not to go to the cross, and he struggled intensely in the Garden of Gethsemane, but embraced fully his Father's will for him. Thus, the suffering he endured was a suffering that he chose. And of course, he did it for the purpose of reconciling humanity with God. In the Gospels, Jesus teaches that if we want to truly be his disciples, then we must take up our cross and follow him. Here is a call to voluntary suffering. The Christians have understood this in a variety of ways. During Lent, for instance, we take on acts of self-denial, small sufferings that we're willing to accept. Those who are called to priestly ministry accept the call to celibacy, denying themselves the good of marriage. And we know that we must stand by what we believe and can find ourselves at odds with the society around us. There's a suffering in that isolation and rejection. Times of deeper persecutions, Christians have had to choose between denying Christ or accepting even martyrdom. A choice has to be made. Such choices become the means by which we participate in the sufferings of Christ, even accepting humbly the daily trials of life, facing tasks that we find hard or burdensome. These can be done in a spirit of faith and united with the sufferings of Christ. Because of what Jesus has done for us, the Christian sees suffering in a whole new way. Uniting ourselves with Christ, all suffering has a redemptive value. Contemplating what Jesus himself endured, we realise our sufferings are slight indeed. So today, we stand before the cross. We stand in the face of deep human suffering. But we believe, as the prophet Isaiah expressed, that Jesus took on his sufferings for our sake. He surrendered himself to death bearing the faults of many and praying all the time for sinners. And we believe that by his wounds we have been healed. So we accept the sufferings that come our way and unite ourselves with the crucified Christ, and willing to take up our cross and follow him. We accept the sufferings that may come to us because we seek to be faithful disciples of the Lord. The cross is a central and defining symbol of Christianity. We unite ourselves to the cross of Christ, knowing that it is the way to life and the source of salvation.